Oh my gosh, can you hear me now? Okay, one more time. Can you guys hear me now? Oh my gosh. This went on for like 10 minutes, 3 minutes, 4 minutes, 5 minutes. Oh my gosh, amazing. Well, thank you for your patience. Here we have so many people sitting live. Oh my gosh. Hey, let's just rewind. Welcome to the Doctor of Stuff channel. I'm your host, Doctor of Stuff. Uh, As a disclaimer, I always say that nothing I discuss here should be considered or taken as financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor. I'm not your financial advisor. And no, I'm not even a real doctor. Okay. Just a nickname. That was a lot of fun. Okay. Let's kind of rewind here. So, what I had shared, geez, man, and let's get back to this. So, I had shared with you guys this culture crave comment, right? And I'm going to share that again. Let's try that again so you can hear what I was talking about. All right. So Culture Crave, right? This account has a significant amount of followers, 260,000 accounts. Now, how many of those are actually bots? Like I've learned one thing is that you just can't ever really trust um, what people, their accounts, right? How many people are actually following them. Let's go back there. Okay, so the status. A new study shows that 95% of NFTs values have dropped to zero. I was dying when I saw the pictures that they had chosen, right? They could have picked any of them. Bored Apes, obviously they're not dropped to zero, Bored Apes, but like they picked VeVe, Captain America, and Spider Man, right? And I was just dying at how many. So you've got 1,200. Let's see how many comments here. 1,256 comments, and I swear over half of them are the VeVe fan coming out in force, being like, "Yo, this is not. Uh, these are terrible examples that you've given, right?" So I'd given a shout out to my collectibles, the digital collectibles you are showing are on VeVe, and they have not gone to zero. Um, so I just thought that that was funny, right? So um, now here we go. Let's see. So uh man, I think it was so funny. Look at these comments as they were just betting on how long it was going to take me to get going. You guys are awesome. Hey, so sorry about that. Appreciate your patience. um SoCal Omi Homie saw me use sign language. Look, I can do the alphabet in sign language. I actually had a deaf friend in growing up in elementary school, and he taught me some sign language. I even got my own name in sign language, which I thought was really cool. What up, Pixel Trader? Okay, so I kind of want to talk about the VeVe market, right? Like, as you can see though from that post, like NFTs in general are down significantly from their all-time highs. Same with crypto, and the tendency is that people panic and they panic sell out, and sometimes that's a good thing to do. Honestly, uh, it just depends on your conviction in the project, and if you think there's a couple things, right? With any project, they need a steady stream of income, and if they don't have that income, they've only got so much runway before they run out, right? In the finance world, we kind of call that capital burn. Like, how much money do they have to continue to go? And it's typically with a lot of like startups or failing entities, right? Of like, how much do they have before they don't have any more money and they just go belly up? Or for startups, like how much money do they have before they either need to generate more money than they spend or raise additional funds? So that happens a lot with venture capital groups, right? And that's part of the analysis you have, is that capital runway. So a lot of these NFT projects, if they are not pulling in money consistently, that is something to consider and say, does this have long-term viability? Um, and or is it a lot of it hype, right? So a lot of these NFT projects, these 10,000 PFP NFT projects, their whole goal was to try to generate hype, and then hopefully over time find ways to continue to earn money. Blur and OpenSea have kind of hosed that to a certain extent, right? With the cutting off of royalties, is that these companies no longer are getting money from that. So how do they continue to build and to grow? And they've got to find out ways. Well, we know that VeVe is doing that. What's up, Poppy? SoCal Omi Homie. Yeah, I love this fam. You guys are fantastic. So anyways, I just wanted to point that out, that like VeVe Market's down and it could remain down for some time. But like when I got into VeVe and I really started to do the research on the team, and I kind of had some debates with people on Twitter, right? Shout out to Block. I really like Block. I think that he is his views are a little bit tainted, but like I like a lot of points of views that he brings up, and we can discuss some things, right? But we kind of talked about, he's like, oh, VeVe's gonna go bankrupt, and I'm like, where are you getting that from? Like, where are you getting that from? So yes, values are down, and then people are saying all VeVe is doing is sucking out liquidity from the market by doing additional drops, and it's like their business model is to do drops, and they have contractual obligations to do drops. So they're going to continue to do drops. And I love that, right? Like we're going to continue to get different IP, and people can choose not to do that. And we see that all the time, that there are drops that don't sell out. People are like, it's priced too high. There's too many editions, or I just don't like the IP. And that's okay. And VeVe is going to continue to do that. But what I like to see about VeVe is that they're continuing to generate income, and they're growing where 95% of these projects really are either downscaling, right? Or they're in a panic mode because they're just like, we don't know where money is going to come from. And like, what are we going to do, right? Whereas VeVe is like growing. They're hiring a blockchain team. So I want to talk about this. Let's see. In my opinion, which is VeVe most proficient in, crypto or collectibles? Will their skill set in one over the other affect which trends faster? Oh, great question, Stan. In my opinion, I think that VeVe is way more proficient in collectibles. I mean, the CEO of the company is just like this master collector, right? He understands that. And I think that that is why they've been so successful, why they were able to sell this idea to so many of the IPs, is just like, we are going to create these digital collectibles. Almost all of these IPs already had like physical collectibles or toys, right? So selling that, but they really struggled with the blockchain. And I really think when David Yu tweeted out in 2021, or whether it was a VeVe, I can't remember if it was David or Dan or the VeVe handle that was like, hey, interoperability is right around the corner. I don't think that they had any idea what was going on there. And so I can get by. When people are complaining, I think it's very important to listen. And this is my investor mindset, right? Because I love VeVe and I'm collecting on there, but I do believe that there are certain collectibles that if VeVe remains viable long-term and digital collecting actually becomes mainstream, that these could be significant value down the road, right? So, but what I'm seeing is them adapting and adjusting. So I have to listen to the people who are complaining and saying, hey, here's my frustrations, and saying, are they making a valid point here? I think that's so important. So when people shut down or try to shout down the fudders, I typically don't block people, even if they're, well-known fudders in the community, because sometimes they make some really good points. And I try to listen to that and say, does this change my mindset, or does this, like, do I need to stop investing or like really take a serious look at this, right? But VeVe continues to grow, and they are adapting, and they've hired this blockchain team. And the whole purpose of that blockchain team, that, again, we're taking them at their word. And let me back up here. When I say we're taking them at their word, I think in the past, it was fair to say, like, how can we trust what you guys are saying, right? Like at the end of 2022, they said the VeVe verse is right around the corner, end of the year. Didn't happen, right? And then Mitch kind of rolled that back and was like, you know what? Like I kind of misspoke, and I'm going to tone things down. We're not going to make as many announcements. We're just going to put our heads down and build, and you'll see those just roll out. And I think that is awesome to see. So as we've started to see them fulfill some of the promises that they had made in the past, now I think that we can start taking them at their word, like, again. I mean, I had a discussion with someone when they announced the MCP points for having OMI in the VeVe app, and they were like, okay, so we see them make this announcement, and then there's some, like, the dev wallet or something tied to the team or the company or whatever, right, sell some OMI after that announcement. And they're like, do you think that this is actually really coming? And I'm like, I actually do. I actually think it's coming. And I say that because I think that they've learned that they don't make announcements like that unless it's very soon that it's going to happen, because they've gotten punished, publicly punished for that from the, and rightfully so, from the community for doing that. So we got here, smart money isn't touching VeVe NFTs with the 10-foot pole, a few grails maybe, but we all know they're going to push out NFTs every other day, saturating. That's true. Look, not every NFT, I don't think every NFT is going to go out there and be a quote unquote grail. How many baseball cards are there out of the hundreds of millions that they've issued over decades are worth anything or a significant amount of money? Not a lot. Not a lot, right? Collectibles too, Pokemon cards. Like, so I agree. But some of it, I just love the collectibles. They talk about the Pink Panther, man. I told my dad about the Pink Panther, and I was like, do you remember how we used to watch that show, that movie like when I was growing up? And he's like, oh, we loved it. And we just started reminiscing again about some of the funny moments in those movies and things. So I think it's a great mixture, Sean, of collecting and potential investing that they have. But you got to be wise, right? And I see a lot of people who complain and they're like, oh, I bought this on the drop and then it dropped 50% in value. You know what didn't drop 50% in value that I thought was really interesting, and it didn't even sell out, was what's that latest collectible here? One of the latest collectibles. But I'm going to pull this up real quick. But I noticed that, see, when we don't have the bots flowing through the system, then the people who actually purchase it, they're like, look, I'll sell it maybe under retail, but not that much under retail, where when you get the bots, oh yeah, just like the Star Wars vehicles, right? So right now, yeah, it's $60 at the store, right? But some of these are like, I think the floor is like $53, $50. Whereas before, when there was a ton of bots participating in that, they would floor things and it'd be like half the value. But again, it's, if you buy something that you love, you're never going to go wrong. If you're buying something because you think it's going to go up in value, you also have to have like a mindset of what the time frame is. Do you think that it's going to go up in value immediately after the drop? Is it highly coveted? Is it something that's well sought after? Or is it something that there's a lot of fans who may not know about this IP yet or about VeVe, and longer term, it may go up in value. But then you also have to think in the short term, is it going to drop? So should I wait until after the drop, go for it, get it at lower prices, and then hold there? So look, I'm stacking more OMI than I am collectibles right now too. I think the OMI is at a great price. And I have been, in the past, I was more heavy in collectibles, but I have definitely been reversing that trend and DCing a lot into OMI at these prices. Yeah, look, in fact, Bill, with the Pink Panther is interesting. I wanted to, I'm like, I got to go buy those movies. I got to watch them again, just relive that. So that's so incredible. And I think that the IP sees that, right? Because when I go buy those old DVDs or whatever, right? Like the Pink Panther IP, like they get the money for that. They're still making money. So it's phenomenal. I panic sold Animal into Bump in June. It's a tricky space. Look, I reached out to the Animal team. So for those of you guys who don't know, Animal Concerts is, I think it's phenomenal. And they have some massive connections to like AAA level artists, musicians in the space. Alicia Keys, I mean, Billy Ray Cyrus, that's debatable, is that AAA. But and others there, right? Snoop Dogg tweeted them out back in January or February of this year. And their whole thing is doing concerts in the metaverse. Remember how VeVe had talked about doing concerts in the metaverse? Wouldn't that be great if those guys like partnered up? That would be cool. But look, the token is down there. But I reached out to him and I'm like, are you guys still around? Are you still operating? Because they hadn't tweeted in a while. And there were some issues with the CEO. There's a different CEO than there was originally. And so there was concerns about that. and not every project that I dive into is going to work out, and I know that. But when I talk to him, we're trying to get him actually to do like a co-hosted interview, myself and Crypto Rain, because we'd had the previous CEO on there. But look, it is a tricky space, whether it's collectibles or crypto in general. Season 1 is on sale. Look, I do think, again, if VeVe in general becomes mainstream, that season 1, it's very limited editions overall compared to that boom as VeVe started to grow and there was more accounts, or bots or whatever it was that were buying up a lot of things. Then the edition sizes started to go much higher. But season 1, that really could be something that 5 years or 10 years down the road, people are like, you have a season 1 piece, let alone a set, what up, Omicron? So anyways, I just wanted to kind of touch on the VeVe market. So here's I wanted to, I'm kind of excited to talk about this, guys. And it's taken a while. It's been on my mind and I just have not had the time, unfortunately, to go through this. But I gotta find, that's so weird that didn't. All right, let's get these. So I wanted to talk about that MOU with Alibaba Cloud. So back in July, and I know that this is kind of it happened 2 months ago, right? People are like, this is old news. But I tried to listen to, and shout out to Daniel Lee. I listened to him. Shout out to several people who covered kind of what they believed was going on there. My Collectibles talked about it. But I didn't really hear anyone. And Randy definitely covered it. Randy covers everything, right? But all right. So let me give you a brief synopsis of this, or a summary, right, of what people had talked about when this came up, right? So for those of you who don't know, an MOU is not a formal contract, right? It's kind of like the precursor to a formal contract, especially internationally. And it's basically saying, hey, we have this intent. We're going to kind of feel things out. There's going to be some negotiations here, but our intent is to actually sign a contract. And Ali Cloud, or Alibaba Cloud, right? It's China's largest cloud service provider. So some of the assumptions were that this could lead to potential lower pricing and operational efficiencies, as they are, instead of just Amazon Web Services, right, in China, having that's a big thing. And it definitely like brings those services. It's easier for the people in China, as opposed to Amazon Web Services, like their servers are further away, right? So this is going to help with like AR technology. It's like part of VeVe's localization efforts to improve app capabilities and products and to reach Asian markets a little faster, more efficiently. I think that those are all valid. So potentially establishing a relationship to help out in the VeVeverse, because there has been an announcement with Avalanche and Ali Cloud. There's an article about that. I don't know if that's really the case, because again, Avalanche blockchain, we're not on the Avalanche blockchain, right? We're on L2 IMX right now. Could they migrate over? Yeah. And at some point they might migrate over to something else if it makes more sense long-term. Why was a picture taken, right? If this is not even a contract, and I want to talk about that a little bit. There is, in the Chinese business world, I'm going to say this wrong here. Wang Qi, right? That's the term. And what it means is a system of social networks and influential relationships which facilitate business and other dealings, right? So in the Chinese business world, it is relationships are everything. And so just setting up a relationship with Ali Cloud, which there's a good reason to do that, right? Hey, we want your cloud services here. We are planning on marketing to the Asian Pacific region and, the Chinese people. And so they want to establish that relationship. But as they do that, they're getting into their foot in the door and getting to know people in Alibaba, right? And everyone's talked about Alibaba. But a long time ago, well, not a long time, probably like 6 years ago, I did a presentation on for my work on central bank digital currencies. And China was a big one, digital currency, electronic payment. And as I was doing that analysis, found out that like China is basically a cashless society, right? It's like 4 out of every 5 transactions are done without cash or like, electronically. And that was several years ago. So it's probably even higher, right? Like 8.5 out of 10 or 9 out of 10. So I want to give a shout out to Will Mai as he was interviewing David Yu. I'm going to give you as Will Mai asked David Yu about this MOU, right? David had said that the overall goal is to break into the greater Asia market, right? Digital collectible market is much bigger there. He talked about gaming and how much they purchase in gaming. Then he did talk about ensuring that the AR functions perform better, right? They also know that they need to establish relationship there because China has a different set of business laws and privacy laws, right? And working with Ali Cloud to understand what data they can have, what they can't have, what they need, how they need to protect that, where it can be kept. So they need support on a lot of fronts for cloud storage, security, and then he said payment aggregators. And I think that is, so I want to focus in on that right there. When I talked about China being a cashless society, basically, there are 2 main players in the space, Alipay and WeChat. Now, Alipay is kind of what Elon Musk wants Twitter to be, which is this super app where you can do social, you can integrate payments, like it's like everything, right? You message all of these things. And basically Alipay and WeChat, that's what they do, right? So you can pay each other, they make all these payments, and there are millions and millions and millions of businesses worldwide that accept Alipay. And where I think that this is going as they are working on the payment aggregator side of things is to establish a way, whether it's on the web app, and I'm assuming that that's where it's got to go for now, but for the Asian market to be able to use Alipay and integrate Alipay into their web app. And once that happens, that will be massive because if they can't use credit cards, or a lot of them don't have credit cards, or they just have Alipay, I mean, if you look at the when Americans would travel, or anyone internationally would come and travel into China, it used to be very difficult because they would bring credit cards and people didn't accept credit cards. Now they are working on accepting credit cards. I mean, they built that out so that they can accept credit cards, but it's so much easier with Alipay. So what Alipay did is they worked with Visa and these other credit cards to integrate that into their app so that then people could pay with credit cards. People could accept payments from that. But by developing this relationship with Ali Cloud, I believe they're getting their foot in the door with this Guangxi, right, to establish these relationships with Alibaba and some of the other subsidiaries of Alibaba, including Alipay, which would be incredibly important for them to have to gain access to a lot of spending dollars in China. So let's see what we got here. VeVe isn't VeVe. The problem is users who enable them, 30% cash out. Look, I agree, and this is a little bit tangent here from this comment, but I agree. $500. I've talked to a lot of people. I think that that's too high, and I think it's great to question and to pressure VeVe into saying like why. We have all of these other platforms that are doing this, and there's not this massive threshold. $500 is a lot. I mean, it's not illegal. Like there's in the terms of service there, and that's one thing that like I get very serious about when people are saying this is illegal or it should be illegal. There's a difference between being an acceptable practice or some, like does the community like that and it being illegal? Definitely not illegal. But I'm with you on that. It's frustrating there, 100%. And I'm hoping that they lower that. But I think that's through the community of constantly bringing that up and saying, hey, and trying to get answers as to why that is when a lot of other platforms don't have that threshold. I think it's a very fair question to ask. I do own Fish, and I'm actually I've gotten several airdrops over the years. I mean, I've followed Brock McBlockchain for a long time. I really like him. I really like Brock, and I think that he's just such a sincere, wonderful person who is really trying to help people grow. I love that he's collaborated with artists, that he believes in there, and that VeVe has collaborated there to do that. So I will be, I mean, I do have fiche, and I will probably be buying some more here to get some of those. I would love to get the whole set. I followed, well, I love Mumbot. Mumbot's awesome, but then also Fabrics, man, that I love that guy. And I have some of Fabrics NFTs as well there. So I appreciate not spamming, Sean. VeVe is still brand new. The cost of pay is you pay in a startup environment. Yeah, imagine buying a Joker for 80 gems in 2029. Yeah, I think the Joker's down to like 80 gems right now. I just don't, for the first Joker on the blockchain, I don't see that being the case in 2029. But that's just me. And again, like that's my assumption. And all I'm trying to do is share with you guys my thoughts on that, right? You know, Davey, that is a great question. I actually tweeted out at Alex, and I was like, hey, first of all, like, do we know when the next release of like additional users into the VeVeverse is? My understanding, and this is just a rumor, right? So I have not validated this, but I feel like it's pretty credible. So at least bring it up. But like there was some sort of hiccup with what's their name? The ones that are creating the VeVeverse there. And so like they had to and I don't know what that hiccup was, but there's some sort of stalling there. And I don't know if that's been fixed or what's going on, but that was my understanding. Let's see what he say here. Imagine being in control of VeVe OMI. Potential of OMI to $1 is crazy to me. So there was a question around the Economiverse like a couple weeks ago, and they were like, you know, what do you think that your predictions for OMI in like end of this year, end of 2024, and end of 2025? And I made a wild prediction, and it like I want to clear this up a little bit. I think that I laid it out wrong in my prediction. So I think by the end of 2025, there is a decent possibility that we could be anywhere from 10 cents to 50 cents realistically. But then I also, and I made a video about this, and I really think that you guys should watch it if you haven't, where I talk about the catalysts that are coming for Bitcoin and then what that means for VeVe and OMI. If all of those catalysts truly line up and we have a blow off top, all bets are off. And I listed some of these projects and some of the things that they did, right? Like there was one project that it did a 15,000x in 12 months, right? So crazy things happen. And I'll tell you, like, is $1 to $5, does that make sense in 2025? It doesn't make sense necessarily in 2025, right? Like it doesn't. But so many of these things in a bull run don't make sense. I caught the tail end of the last bull run, and there were tokens that I was like, how am I making so much money on this? This is crazy. This is crazy. It makes no sense because people stop looking at market caps, right? They're just looking at what's hyped and what's going on, and they buy into these green candles. So then the green candles go even bigger and even bigger and even bigger. And then you start looking at the market cap, and it's like this project doesn't even have anything tangible right now. How is it at a $400 billion market cap? How is it that high? How's it that high? There's no reason for it. Like it's hype. And that's what I'm saying is, should a $1 to $5 OMI happen in 2025? No, it shouldn't. Could it? If all those things happen, it could. I mean, and the reason for that, right, is a little bit of OMI burns. That's going to be a big thing. How much is burned of it? Is there true utility? How many exchanges we have? Did the Bitcoin halving happen? Like not happen, but like, did that have an impact? What is Bitcoin's market cap at, right? Because if Bitcoin goes to 200,000 or 250,000, then all of a sudden you've got like a $4.5 trillion market cap for Bitcoin, and people that have bought at the 20,000, 25,000 range are just selling. So anyways, what up, Dave? I appreciate you, man. I appreciate that retweet. Appreciate all you guys for watching and also like liking and then retweeting mine out. If you haven't already, I would love it. I put out this little banner here, right? If you could smash, push, crush, or even gently caress that like, subscribe, and all notifications button. to try and grow my channel here. I really like just trying to inform people about things and at least offer my perspective. I agree with you, Poppy, that Theses are cool. Those look awesome, and Brocas are cool. Giving Man, Cavernous. Thank you. That's the company that is building out the VeVe-verse, right? With so many failed NFT projects and projects that are scaling at a snail pace, why does it seem FUD is hovering more over VeVe than the lesser? So when you're number one, whether you're a basketball player, a baseball player, a boxer, a company, right? You become the target of attacks. And there's a lot of reasons for it, right? Especially in crypto, when everything is, the mentality is there's this get rich quick. I'm going to get rich. I'm going to get rich quick, and this is how I'm going to do it, right? And then they saw these pumps, and then people buy in at the top, right? And when VeVe was so big, and they're the biggest player in this digital collectible space, and I mean, there were times where there was professional NBA players in the VeVe Twitter spaces that I would see. There were so many. Remember before everyone could get a blue check, right? Just like blue checks actually like really meant something, and they were like massive popular people with massive followings. There were so many of those blue checks in those VeVe spaces, right? And there was a lot of hype. And so people then bought in at the top, and now they didn't sell, or and they're upset, and a lot of people are upset. And that's not just VeVe, but because VeVe has had such a big following, there's so many people in there. I think that's why we hear a lot of that, as opposed to other failed NFT projects. On top of that, we typically tend to follow, or Twitter, puts into our feed people that are tied to the project, as opposed to like Bored Ape projects. If you're not following anyone from the Bored Apes or from the Moonbirds, I mean, there was a huge blow up with Moonbirds recently. I mean, I have some buddies who are Moonbirds, and man, they bought it like 2.5 ETH. It went up to 40 ETH. They didn't sell. I was telling them to sell. I was like, if I would have bought this, if I would have been able to buy it, I tried to get whitelisted. It didn't happen. And then it would drop. And then the creator took it out of his Twitter profile description, and people were freaking out like he'd abandoned it. So there is a lot of fuss. It's just typically the VeVe fam doesn't hear about it because they're following other VeVe fam or people that were in the project. So then Twitter is feeding that in. So it may seem like there's more FUD hovering over VeVe than others, but at the same time, I promise you, it is definitely happening in a lot of projects there. Okay. So I just want to get back to this a little bit. I do think that that Ali Cloud relationship is massive for them getting the Alipay relationship, which is going to be massive for it making it easy for people in the APAC region to purchase things on VeVe. And I'll tell you something, there's this phenomenal book that I recommend everyone read. It just talks about human nature. It's called Nudge. And it talks about basically, a real quick summary is people just do the default. In general, the large majority of people, the default settings on your phone, people don't change them. The majority of people don't change them. They did these studies where cafeterias for kids, the first thing, whatever the first food item was that they put out in the line when students walked in, whatever that first thing was purchased more than any other item, whether that was an apple or a candy bar. Like, it didn't matter. It was just the first thing. It was the easiest thing. It was just there, right? And so having Alipay, or a quick and easy way to make the purchase, then people can react to that emotional trigger, that FOMO or whatever it is, quicker. The more steps it takes for them to do that, the less likely they are to then actually follow that impulse. So it's fascinating. So I'm super pumped about that. I did want to talk about the Black Widow nesting doll drop. I would love to hear in the comments what you guys think about that. Not my thing. Not my thing. I like Black Widow. And look, VeVe has contracts, and like I'm trying to remember who put it out there, but apparently there are these physical nesting dolls. So it's not like VeVe just created that out of nowhere. And a lot of times we see that, right, where they're working in tandem with the IP because they're doing a physical thing, or they've just released a physical thing, and so they're mimicking that, right, and creating that on. I do think it's cool that VeVe is trying out new things, but definitely not my cup of tea. Okay, the Batmobile drop. I was planning on going for the Batmobile drop. I have the Bane. This was McFarlane Toys. I think the Batmobile drop looks great. Right now, we are looking at it. It has been minted. It's 69% of the 1,500 have been minted. I think there's a lot of hype around this originally. And where I think that they went wrong is they didn't have different rarities. They just had one rarity. And people love that differentiation. So if they just wanted to do one rarity with the fan base or the user base that they have right now, I just don't think that 1,500 was the right thing. Will it eventually mint out? Probably. I mean, it's taken about 4 hours to mint like an additional 100 or something. So whether it was mispriced, I think if it had been priced at maybe $50 or $40 instead of $75, I think it would have minted out for sure. But that's just an example. These companies are still really trying to fill out the space, right? And they're constantly in the sandbox playing and saying, will this work? Will this stick? VeVe did that $10 comic. And I was like, no, I think everyone's used to, the $6.99 comics right now. So you did more editions and a higher price. Didn't sell out. I don't think it's going to sell out. Because I was like, no, because also people are looking at what it's valued at in real life. And they're saying, geez, I think in real life, the 9.8 or 9.6 was like $75. Well, I'm going to pay $10 for potentially a common. Yeah, no, not going to do that. But I think they're just continuing to test things and try things out. Okay, I said that I was going to talk about the DC3 Detective Comics number 58, that Penguin drop. I thought that was massive. And I was really excited. I got a rare off the drop. The Batcowls continue to offer value. Man, if you guys are Batman fans at all, I highly recommend you at least look into the Batcowls. Now, there's been a lot of benefits that have already come to pass that you wouldn't be getting. But I don't think that they're too high above retail. I think retail was about $300, and I think that I was seeing them around like $390 to get one. But they still have roadmap to go. And I got to shout out Prez Web3. That's his Twitter handle. And he's a big part of the Batcowl family. And he just interviewed today. He did an interview with the chief creative officer at Candy Digital. So if you don't know that Palm NFT and Candy Digital, they merged. And so he interviewed the chief creative officer. Her name is Straith. And it was great. He asked a lot of questions, but some of the main takeaways from that were that self-custody for Batcowls is guaranteed, and they're working on interoperability and things for everything else, right? Which would be the comics. And I think that is a big, big deal. And I'm looking at some of the hype that's died down from like the Superman #1 comic, this Batman $1 comic, right? There's a lot of hype. Batman #1 comic is like maybe $60 or something right now on the floor. That's $40 more than retail. Like that is crazy to me for such a historic comic. So I have picked up some additional ones because I do believe. Now, here's the thing that we have to keep in mind. This will be very interesting to see, right? Because when we buy on DC3 or like the DC NFT platform, right, or we buy on VeVe, there is a mechanism for us to read those comics. But what happens if then they become interoperable? It might just be a 2D image. So how are we going to read them? Yes, we can maintain them, but then we're going to need to go back into VeVe or have some way to be able to read those. Otherwise, are they really worth that much? So I think that that's another thing that they're really trying to work out is is there a way to make these comics as an NFT, like the full comic book, and what does that take, and how much does that cost, and what is that all like? So that's something to keep in mind as we're going through this. Batmobile does look cool. Uh, okay, so Poppy's take is that he likes the one rarity, that they burn the rest, right? The viewer app with the garage. So I have to shout out McFarlane and criticize him in the same sentence. I love that they are rewarding their collectors, but in general, I don't like how much they're rewarding their collectors at the expense of people who are just getting into the project. So early on, right, some of these mints, it was like, oh, you're the first tier and you get a mint 3, right? And then if there's a second tier, or if those don't all get minted out, then maybe the next tier will get to mint 1, and then it goes to public. So there was times where people bought things like the Blue Beetle, and then by the time it got to them for that drop where they were supposed to get whitelisted, it had already sold out because the top 100 or XP holders had bought them all out. I'm like, that's not cool. Like, I didn't like that either, but it is something to consider. So they have revamped the XP, and I am taking a serious look at, because McFarlane rewards his holders so much, really getting into that ecosystem and being rewarded for that for more highly coveted drops. Tom McFarlane is a very smart businessman. And I think that he has handled some of the kerfuffle that happened. And hopefully that's dying down. But anyways, I had to shout that out. I'm excited for McFarlane to continue to grow. The Detective Comics, I'm excited to read these, guys. When I read Batman #1, it was so cool for me. Like, I know that I could go onto some of these sites and just pay like a subscription and get that comic and just read it there. But to like be reading that and be like, this is an NFT that's like mine that I could then sell later or something. And just reading that, I don't know. It was a really special experience. I love this new medium, and I think it's going to take some time for it to really take hold. But like I do see it taking hold. I really do. And I say that because I showed this to my kids and they just love it. They just love the AR versions of these digital collectibles, the interaction that they can have, taking pictures with them. So if we can do that with comics, right? I know that on VeVe, we can put that in AR and read comics. I think that's awesome. We don't have something like that for DC yet, but they are working on building that. I did have some, hold on, I think I had some more notes there. That Prez talked about with that Batcowls interview. Self-custody for cows guaranteed. Said that that's pretty close to coming out, actually. Physical merch. So she said, so Prez asked about physical merch, and then she talked about physicality, which was interesting that she termed it that way. And what I don't know what that means, but she also said that is actually, there was like a spicy scale I didn't really get, but really hot to fiery hot, which means that it's pretty close to coming out. And then the overdrive thing. So that was one of the things on the roadmap. And one of the reasons that I bought a lot of the different cartridges and things, the boxes of Mayhem, Madness, Harley Quinn, because you were going to be able to use this overdrive to basically craft new things, right? So what if I put like a legendary Superman or legendary Batman cartridge and a Harley Quinn thing in with one of my Batcowls, and what does that create for my Batcowl, or what does that turn into, right? I thought that was so exciting, and it kind of died, like just I don't know, like they just stopped talking about it, and rightfully so. The community was like, hey, this was on the roadmap, and so shout out to Prez for a lot of the questions that he asked. It was great, and basically they said that overdrive is definitely still happening. Candy Digital already has a crafting and a burning mechanism. So I believe that they are going to be working with Palm and DC and integrating that in, right? And so that would be the overdrive. So awesome to see there. So what do I think about VeVe's profitability? So my background is in financial analysis, and don't get me wrong, I would love to see an income statement and balance sheet from VeVe. And I could absolutely dive into that and tell you what I think and how things are going there. But we don't have that, right? So we do have to kind of look at like, what do we think the costs are, their fixed costs, what are their variable costs, right? And then and so some of those costs we don't know, like how much do they have to pay to the IP? Is there an initial contract where they have to pay up front for the IP? and then on top of that, the IP gets, you know, that fee from the secondary market every time? Or do they say, hey, like, and I'm sure it's different with everyone. Absolutely, it's going to be different for different IPs. But because of that, like, there truly is no way to gauge their profitability except for the fact that we are seeing them market. And I want to talk about that marketing. Have you guys been seeing? And I think that this is so cool. Like, one of the ways that they're doing it, it's very low cost, but it's effective in getting their name out there, right? Is these little sweepstakes of like you're sharing it, and the more that you share, the more entries that you get on winning some collectibles. So they're giving away 3 collectibles, but people are tweeting it out, they're sharing it on Facebook and things. So it's a very effective way of people who are like, hey, within my circle of influence, I'm tweeting this out, I'm sharing it on Facebook, I'm inviting people to come in and check this out and use my link so that I get more. It is one way to market, and what it's doing is it's targeting people who already know VeVe, who've probably already talked to their friends about VeVe, and getting them additional exposure. Because with marketing, you typically need multiple touches before people even become curious about it, right? So yeah, when we see companies marketing and hiring, that's a good sign. And that's one of the things that I talked about with Block when he was like, oh, VeVe's going bankrupt. I'm like, yeah, 2 things that you don't see of companies that are going bankrupt is them putting out additional marketing and them hiring new people. Marketing is typically, public relations is one of the first things to go when a company needs to cut costs and, you know, cinch up the belt a little bit because things are, they need to run tighter, which is counterintuitive a lot of times, depending on the type of company in the business, because it's like, you need the income. So you need to spend more on marketing, or you need to find a way to make your marketing more effective so that it goes further to bring in additional income. But they're typically in panic mode at that time. And yep, that's one of the things that goes. So Poppy agrees with me on those early allow lists. They gave too much for early adopters, but they're tweaking, and that's what I like, right? Is these projects are listening to the community, and they're saying, okay. So for example, with the Batman #1 comic, the Batcowl holders were saying, hey, you guys had called us the crown jewel here, and yet we see this focus on the comic side of things. What's happening with the Batcowls? And they gave 40% of the Batman #1 drop to Batcowl holders. If you change that to like what the Superman, no Batcowl holders got nothing on the Superman #1 comic. So massive change there. They listen to it. I think McFarlane is constantly listening. So I hope that you guys take away from that you guys have a voice. So when we're talking about that $500 threshold for VeVe, we have a voice. Let's talk about that, tweet about that, retweet that stuff, right? That's high. And if they're not going to budge, like, let's find out why. What's going on? Why can't you budge from that? That doesn't sound like there's a legitimate reason for that. Now, okay, I'm going to take a step back, right, from a business perspective, and I'm going to say that's what's called liquidity risk management. So if they're saying, hey, we can keep, by having this threshold this high, there's more liquidity for us to do other things as we're growing. But that's at the expense of these users. So I'm not a fan of it, especially when we're seeing projects that are pulling in a lot less money than that, not having that same threshold. Hey, I appreciate you too, Poppy. And I just appreciate you guys when, like, I appreciate the comments, whether it's in the YouTube video or just like little DMs and things like that. Just, cheer me on. Like, that's awesome, because this does take a lot of time. I'm passionate about it, so I enjoy doing it. And a part of it is I just enjoy interacting with this community, because then when we get to go to in real life events, right, I get to see you guys that I meet you in person, that I've only interacted with you digitally, right? And I'm a big hugger. So love to give hugs. And anyways, yeah, I appreciate that. And I definitely try to add value there wherever I can. So if you guys have questions about things, continue to put it in the chat, or just reach out to me on Twitter in the DMs, right? So then the next thing I want to kind of talk about is just like what's happening in crypto. So and I'll talk about OMI first, right? So I'll pull up this chart here. And I need to be better about, I think, changing the view here. So let me try this. Pull up OMI. Now, I am not a technical analysis person, right? Where we're looking at the trends in the chart and saying, oh, like I think that this is going to break out. That's just not my bag, right? So let's see. Like share. Let's see. What happens when I do this and then I present and try this? See, I still can't see that. Well, I'm working, guys. I'm working on this. Let's see. There we go. All right. So here's the live only chart, right? Not looking so hot compared to now. Let me pull this up here because this was the 24 hour. Let's do a 7. No, let's do a 30 day. So pull that back up here. 30 day. Geez, I need to work on how to. There we go. So 30 day, we saw this pretty big pump, right? We saw this pump here. We breached the 00, like got into the 001. That was really exciting. People were hyped. That was after they announced this utility of getting additional MCP points. Now, but what we're seeing here, and this is what's great, and I think this is what's going to happen, is as VeVe continues to announce additional utilities to the token, or I guess Ecomi announces additional utilities to the token, there's going to be pumps, and it's going to be a higher low. Now, it could still drop, but in general, that's what we typically like to see in projects, is where something exciting happens, it pumps up and then it dips back down, but like where it dips to is higher than where it was previously. And I think that there's a lot of catalysts that I've talked about where this could continue to happen, and we get like a higher high within the range, not the all-time high, but a higher highs and then higher lows, and it's making that trend as we build up into the bull market. And so that's where I get when I talk about all of the catalysts that are coming for Bitcoin and then all of the things that could happen for VeVe, right? We still have the VeVe-verse that really needs to come out. That could be a massive fail. And if it does, I think the token will take a pretty big hit. It is really tough to create a metaverse. One of the things that VeVe has that I really think to date no other project truly has had is community. Sandbox, it's in general a ghost town for how much money they have spent on their metaverse, and same with Decentraland, a ghost town, because they didn't have community. They built this metaverse out first without having a community to go to it, so it was all built on hype and money. Whereas, like when I go into the VeVe-verse, I want to see the Vaultaholic vaults. Like I want to see their place. I want to see what they've built out. I really do. I will spend time absolutely in VeVe-verse doing that, and then on top of that, I'll have an avatar or something where I'll be able to actually talk with them like that, and that will be fun. So I think that the VeVe-verse will potentially be a catalyst there, right? We still have yet to see additional exchanges, which I believe will come. And I don't know when, but I believe that it will come, and that's another catalyst there, right? We still actually need to see like MCP points do something. And I think I am shocked at how long it's taken for that to happen, because MCP points started in like March or April. And I know that they've been tweaking it and making sure that the calculations are correct. And I think that it's very important so that everyone gets their fair shake. But there's a certain level of, with any company, the amount of money it takes to get to like 100% accuracy is insane compared to the money it would take to maybe get to like 95% accuracy. And these companies have to, I'm talking kind of about models in general. I work with a lot of companies that have significant amount of models, and there's model risk management, and like there's a lot of things that they have to do there and analyze how accurate their models are in predicting things or in their functions, right? And so, but the amount they have to measure and weigh that, like how much do we want to spend compared to how accurate these things are. And when I say like 95% accuracy, that means that the 5% of people, they're like, well, how much will it cost us to just have to handle the 5% of people who have complaints about their MCP points not working, and handling that on an individual basis, as opposed to truly tightening this model and making it so perfect that there's almost like no inaccuracies there. It's so much money that, you have to weigh that out. With that being said, we got to get something going. Because it's so crucial. These MCP points are so crucial for the remainder of things. When I talk about the utility, it's frustrating that McFarlane Toys has this rolled out, and that they're like, hey, the users right here who are doing this, you're going to get access to these drops. And that's what I've said. I'm like, isn't there a way, even if it's just like, hey, the different levels, master collectors, maybe there's 10% or 15% allocated to them. And so not every master collector is potentially going to get that, but some will. And then each level down, right, there's certain allocations. And then there's some to the general public. I don't understand why that's not possible, because we all have our rankings. So that's something that I definitely think that we should be pushing out there. Bill, I'm with you. Like, me personally, like, I'm buying at these levels, and look, maybe OMI doesn't go to $1, but even if it goes to its all-time high, like, that's still a 10x, right? Like, that's phenomenal. And I truly believe that it's going to go much higher than its previous all-time high, because of all the things that are happening, like I said, around the crypto space, and with VeVe leading into what is potentially a bull run. So anyways, with that, we're rounding out the hour. If there's any last questions there, I'll wait for just a second and see if anyone had anything they wanted me to answer. But before you do, I just want to say, hey, I appreciate all of you guys, and I would love it if you could follow me on Twitter if you don't already, at Doctor of Stuff, DROFSTUFF, and then like, subscribe, and hit the all notifications button on this. Okay, we got one more question here. How will people who never had large amounts of money deal with the value of their OMI stacks swinging up and down by hundreds of thousands of dollars a day? Gonna make me insane. Planet Vampire, there were so many millionaires minted in the last crypto bull run that are now not millionaires. And the reason is they didn't have a plan. I made a decent amount of money in the last tail end of the bull run, and I didn't have a plan. Like, so, I mean, a lot of times what I did is I took profits, I took good profits, but then I rolled it into new projects, right? Instead of taking some of those profits and setting them aside, I just leveraged that and rolled it into new projects. So I have a significant amount of projects actually that have not launched yet. When I talk about, I'm like in 85 projects, a lot of those still haven't launched. And some of them may never launch because they're waiting for the bull run to happen and they're building, but there are costs associated with that. And that's a risk I take, right, with these VC companies and things. But some of them are building out, and I am pumped for what they are doing. But it's truly being disciplined, and that is tough. Financial education is a big deal, and that's why I try to listen to, when I'm listening to crypto people, the first thing I do is, all right, is this person, do they have a big channel because they just produce fun content that's entertaining? Is it informational? But like, do they provide me with sound, like smart advice? Right? Because there's some I just watch because I'm like, oh, like, what's the latest things in crypto? That's great. I can listen to that. But when people are talking to me about tokens and, oh, you should get into this token, right? Then I start to say, okay, what's their background and how successful have they been? And maybe they have this large channel, but are they making money based off of their large channel, or actually the tokens that they're buying and investing? Or is it like certain influencers, right, who are just pumping and then dumping the tokens on you? They were getting paid by these projects to shield their project and in their tokens, and then they were just dumping it on the community, which is so abhorrent to me, to sit there and think that these people who have made me who I am today, I'm just going to screw over by shilling a token that I don't care about. I don't care if it's going to do good or not do good. I'm just going to talk about it because I've been paid to, and I know that I can then sell it to my community. Terrible things. You got to look at those type of influencers, right, and stay the heck away from them, because they're not going to give you, like, not good advice, but like, they're just not going to point you in the right direction. So set some limits on things, Vampire, right? Like, my plan is this: as I believe OMI is going to go up, right? There are certain thresholds where I'm going to say, I'm going to sell 10% here. I'm going to sell another 10% here. I'm going to sell 30% here. And then at this point, I'm going to sell, and again, 10% of my bag. So 10%, now I have 90%, but now that 90%, I'm taking 10% of that 90%, right? And kind of going up. And then I'll always hold a moon bag, right, of any project where I'm like, all right, this last chunk, I'm just holding to zero or to the moon. And so, nope, if OMI were to say to go to $1, I would not be waiting that whole time until I sell, because it might not, right? And there's so many people that like I said, were minted. They were millionaires because of the tokens that got up, and they're like, I'm just gonna wait, and then I'm gonna sell it all. And then it dipped, and then they're like, oh, but it's gonna go back up, and then it dips some more, and they're like, okay, but they'll go back to where it was before, and then they continue to do that all the way down because they didn't have a plan. So it's very important to truly, before the FOMO, like before all of this happens, to set a plan for yourself and what do you feel comfortable at. And that's for collectibles too, right? At what point do you say, hey, if this collectible hits this price point, am I willing to walk away? And yes, it might go up in value even above that, but like you have to be willing to emotionally to set aside your emotions and just logically say, this is where I want to do it at. So when that point comes, you don't end up getting a little too greedy and it hits that price point and then it drops from there and maybe it never gets back to there, right? So that's my thoughts on that. Let's see, we got Poppy here. Worst case and best case value for OMI by end of 2024. And I say that like all my stuff, these are guesses. I mean, they're guesses, right? Like I don't know, right? But what I could see happening, right, is I think by the end of 2024, I do think that there's going to be some substantial OMI utility. I think that the burn mechanism will be there. I believe that we'll have credit card, the ability to use credit cards to purchase OMI layer 2. So when I talked about Alipay and the ease that's needed to transact, like being able to, it is such a pain. It is such a pain right now to purchase OMI layer 2 and get it over to the VeVe app. That it's too hard. It's too hard. And so I think that they need to develop that before they do like OMI to NFT, before they do anything else, because it's such a pain to get that OMI layer 2 and get that on the VeVe app. But if they can work it to where I can just purchase OMI layer 2 on the web app, good night. And I think that that will absolutely happen before the end of 2024. I think that we will probably be on some additional exchanges by then. So worst case scenario at the end of 2024, I mean, I think I would be shocked if we are below 005. Best case scenario, I think that we will be above our all-time high. We could be at 3 cents or 5 cents, right? So there's a lot there. Again, the burn mechanisms will play a significant part in that. And that's why it would be so hard to predict, because we don't know what the price of OMI will be when the burns happen. And but I think that those bronze tickets are going to burn the crap out of OMI once we get the ability to purchase OMI layer 2 on the app. But until then, I don't think the bronze tickets are going to have much value. It'll be so hard. I mean, it'll be so hard to purchase those and be such a pain that most people won't do it unless there is a massive, massive drop there. So a massive drop is in a massive drop, IP drop or something. Then people will be like, okay, it's probably worth getting additional entries in for that. But so they shut down the mint. So they minted it. Let's see. Yeah, there it is. They've shut it down. So when I just closed out, it was like 1,049 had been minted. I think that that's cool that they closed it, right? As opposed to sitting out there, because that actually kind of devalues it even more when people are like, oh, it's like it's not even sold out more. How many times have you guys looked at a drop on VeVe that hasn't sold out and you're like, hasn't sold out, and then all of a sudden it starts selling out, and then it sells out, and that panic there. But when it doesn't sell out, people they devalue it. So with something as important as the FA Batmobile, I think that's great that they cut that mint off and they're just like, hey, this is what's out there now. So appreciate you, Planet Vampire. Omicron, 10 cent OMI would be amazing. 6 cents Austin, 3 cents I'm content. 1 cent I'll take it. Look, I'm there too. Like that's my thing, right? We can make all these predictions. They're just guesses there. But do I believe that OMI has the capability to do multiple X's? Yes. And in fact, one of my really good friends, who's doing quite well for himself. When he knew I was into crypto, and he was like, "Hey, this isn't financial advice or anything, but like I don't have the time to really get into the crypto world, but I want a token that has a decent chance of high returns. I know that Bitcoin potentially that can do something for me, but like what's something that could be really great?" And I told him about Omi. Out of all the projects I'm in, I just said Omi really has a significant potential, and part of it is because how much money they continue to make. So they have a longer runway. They have the ability to withstand this bear market, where so many projects don't. And that's why so many of these NFT projects are going to zero or their value is zero. It's because they died out because they didn't have the funds to continue to grow, right? So I love it. Batmobile is on. Oh, okay, touche. I did not know that NFT hero. Batmobile was already on HRO. It'll be interesting to see how people value um, FA on the blockchain, right? So Batmobile was already there, FA on the blockchain, but it's a 2D tradable card. And do people value that more because it's FA, or do they value the first kind of interactive 3D model? Be very, very interesting. But all of that also depends on whether or not these companies make their collectibles interoperable, and whether or not oh, I guess I can stop sharing that. Interoperable, and whether they're on IPFS, right? Because if their projects go down and the servers, they stop paying those servers, those images aren't accessible, then all you have is a token with no image, and that is not good. So yeah, underlying they are. I agree. They are both just image files. However, if I can put mine in, like Tom McFarlane, like that garage or something, like there's more interaction with it than just a 2D image. Um, Again, it's just something to take into consideration, right? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. Which one people value more? I would say historically, FAs are very, very important, but this is such a new medium, and like I don't know. Like I don't know if there's like an FA Darth Vader trading card and an FA Darth Vader collectible, like a physical collectible. I think that's the closest I could get to it. And which one is worth more? That be very interesting to do some reach on that. Like cards that also have like a collectible counterpart, or like a more physical counterpart, an interactive counterpart. Um, the biggest bro. Hey man, I loved watching your stream. Oh, I was going to talk about Cryptoys. That's the last thing I want to talk about. I kind of went on a little rant. So if you guys don't know the biggest bro, he's got a YouTube channel. He's great. He's an incredible supporter, incredible part of the community. Shout out to him. So follow him on Twitter and on YouTube if you don't already. But the Cryptoys thing, Will, I doubt you're watching this, but if you watch this, first of all, I love Cryptoys. I love what you guys are building. I was very, very disappointed in how I feel like the OG believers in Cryptoys were treated when you did that 2-for-1 drop on the Star Wars stuff. Because what that basically did is there's no marketplace yet. And so now people, they paid $40, but they got two of them. So it's the equivalent of $20 per box, right? So I've got less boxes, and not only that, but then there's more potentially on the marketplace when that happens. And when people are like, hey, I could sell it for $30 and still make a profit, whatever it is, whether it's a comment or something, compared to me, who paid $40 for each box, that really hoses the initial investors in your project. I'm shocked that there's not like an airdrop or something that you guys could have done. So, I love that you guys did that with the Mickey drop. Shout out on that. FA Pluto, right? Unless you want to talk about like the that card that VeVe has. But anyways, I was very disappointed in that. But it was fun to watch Biggest Bro. You guys got so many commons and rares. That's the only ones you guys got in general. I was dying. A lot of fun. So you know what? In the comments, so I would love to hear. I've been collecting quite a few Lorcana game cards that are in the packs still. I want to actually like teach my daughter how to play and get her into playing that card. She loves Disney stuff, and so when she saw Elsa, she wanted to do that. But would that be cool? Would that be something people would watch? Is like an unboxing of Lorcana cards? And let's see. Oh, I saw that. First sell order will be about around 10 cents, then 20, then 30. So there you go. Like that's an example, Bill. Like that's what he feels like it can hit those 10 cents, 20 cents, and 30 cents. Now the next question is like what percentage are you going to sell of that? That's a big deal too. Shout out to you, Bean Tech. Anyways, I've been going longer than an hour, which I typically try to hold that at. I appreciate all of you guys for watching, the comments, and for bearing with me on the first like 3 to 4 minutes of just silence on my channel. So hopefully the people who watch this going forward figure that out, or they fast forward and do that. But again, hey, thanks again so much. And we will see you guys. I will be on Around the Comiiverse on Monday with Jordan Riz and any of the other OGs that can make it. So thank you very much. Bye.